we'll make up that time. We began this committee meeting with first with the Business and Finance Committee. Trustee Hopper.
Yes. Good morning, Business and Finance Committee. It's called to order. Please note the members of the committee are Trustee Watts, Trustee Hackett, Trustee Banks, Trustee Cole, Trustee Thomas, and Trustee Williams. I would now like to call our interim vice president for finance and administration, Ms. Batiste, for the report.
Good morning. Before Dr. Batiste comes, let me first introduce her formally. We're so pleased to have her serve in this role. Dr. Batiste previously served as our controller. For those of you that know anything about the structure, that's the area where our audit each year is the reduction time, the time constantly put that position over it. So we are very excited to have her serving in this position. I'm going to ask if you would allow me just a point of personal. As you are aware, this is the final budget that I will present on this institution at present. And going back to my files, I found the first budget that I presented back in 2009. The very first budget that we presented at the time. It's always good to go back and reflect. And what I'm about to say, of course, for those who were around at the time, you know where we were as an institution in 2009. So I just want to highlight just a couple of things that was true about the budget presented in 2009. At that time, we were attempting to address what is called proration. That is a reduction in state appropriations. That amount was by 10%. We were wrestling with reducing the operating budget, not increasing, but reducing the operating budget by $8.1 million, as opposed, Dr. Jones, and I'm calling her for a certain reason, as opposed to talking about a salary increase as expected in this budget, we were really implementing a salary decrease at the time because all employees at the university were furloughed. Furlough was in essence a reduction. Trustee Hopper, we had no reserves. We had no line of credit. Our state appropriation was $42.8 million. Trustee Hackett, we had no funds for deferred maintenance. And we were overstaffed by 246 employees. So that was the first budget presented to the Board of Trustees for approval at the beginning of my tenure. I want you then to contrast that to the budget that is now going to be presented by Peace, as the budget is presented that certainly prepares this university for further growth and for an appropriate transition. So thank you for just letting me share those few historical highlights with you. And for any time you want to good reading here is the budget. So that said, on you, Dr.
Mr. President, what was the number? What was the numbers like the income and expenses?
Okay, the total budget, I think, let me check this out. It was less than 100 million. $89,185,561. $89,185,561 was the total budget in 2009.
Deficit budget at that time.
All kinds of we stayed afloat, but we did stay afloat. You know, I'm a country boy, and you know, when you're on the farm and you want your fruits and your food to better, you prune them. After you prune them, they come back and they come back with better. we were in the status of pruning. Pruning is now. So, all right, Dr. Batiste, it's on you.
Thank you, Dr. Hugini. Good morning to the trustees, President Pro Temp, as well as all those in attendance. I am very honored to be able to serve you this morning, this capacity to be able to present Business and Finance Subcommittee meeting. Is this working? Am I able to click it? We have a number of items on our agenda we're going to discuss this morning in brief capacity. Of course, this is the list of agenda items. I'm not going to read directly through them. I'm going to jump right into the presentation portion of the agenda. We start off. We start off on the agenda item for the HBCU Capital Financing Program loan update. In this particular area, it's showing that of the inception of the loan that we had appropriated, we were aware that as of December 27th, 2020, we were forgiven by the federal government of all of our 2015 HBCU loans, which totaled $77,800. As well as our 2019 loan, we were forgiven at a rate of $4.3 million, making a total for quarter three, $82 million that has been reported as actual income on our. So that's a tremendous thing. That was a lot. Looking at the CARES Act update, of course, you know we were appropriated several pool money based on during the duration of the coronavirus. Being that said, you also saw an overview of how we assessed and spent the money during this particular period of time. The first round, of course, we just about completely utilized all of those funds, mainly to address needs across the campus-wide, as well as to advance to students at that time to aid them in various capacities for expenditure needs. As we get to the second two rounds of money that we were awarded by the institution, even the one as recent as May of this year, you can see that we still have the capacity to maintain going forward to assist our students as long as those funds are available, as well as the infrastructure and other projects that the CARES Act guidelines has provided for us. And the good thing is that since the inception of the May pot, other guidelines have been established to widen our gap to be able to provide assistance to our students. That includes all students now, which is a good thing compared to when we first started with the CARES Act and there was restrictions on who we could and could not service. Now that has opened up. So that gives us an ever more advantage to be able to assist our students going forward, the entire student body. The fiscal year 22 budget, just want to begin to start off with an assessment of where we are in regards to tuition and fees compared to other agencies around the state. As you can see, Alabama A&M still remains one of the lowest cost-effective for attendance for students across the state of Alabama. And we have basically no intention of raising that at the moment, okay? So we're kind of remaining affordable with no tuition increases requested for this particular time. So we look at our strategic goals for 2022 as it relates to our strategic plan. We start off with priority 4, maintaining a balanced budget, which, as you can assess based on the historical information Dr. Evgeny provided to you back in 2009, we are very, very much related in that particular area and plan to be good stewards to remain balanced budgeting with priority 4 of our strategic plan. We also provide affordable access to recruit and retain outstanding student body, which relates to priority 1, address any deferred maintenance needed across campus wide in a significant manner, which is priority 3, and recruit and retain faculty consistent with SACS and discipline accreditation requirements, which is also a part of priority 1 and 2 of our strategic plan. So we are still trying to maintain those goals going forward. So we look at the actual budget assessment that's being provided for fiscal year 22, and hopefully it's favorable that it will be approved. But as you can see, based on the information provided, we are assessing to stay in balance with a $211,466,000 budget going into fiscal year 22. And hopefully this will remain as effective as it has been. This is based on all the other areas that we assess for that during the budget meetings. To break that down a step further, looking at the revenue projections for the fiscal year, we had a few slight changes, one of which, of course, is the state appropriations, which we are awarded $3 million increase this year. Of course, that affects the bottom line of our budget. Our federal funding, of course, will remain the same. Tuition and fees, you can see a slight increase of $2.9 million, but that is because we were fortunate enough to look at all of our revenue streams, and the CARES Act provided that we had the ability to recover any losses associated during the pandemic. So we were able to keep our revenue stream pretty level with what we were prior to the pandemic. So that allowed for a slight increase. And of course, you can see from the bottom line that 6.6 million will be the change or increase to the revenue stream going into fiscal year 22. Major strategic priorities for fiscal year 22 budget that we're assessing. First of all, priority 1 is investment in human capital at 6.2%, which is one of the initiatives that, of course, Dr. Evgeny and administration has made a forefront going forward each year as things have progressed. Underneath that, we're proposing a 6% across the board increase to employees to adjust for their services related to how they service the institution. With what we plan to do, of course, overall, we looked at the 26% of employees that are now eligible to retire, which is a significant number to any institution, with 56% of that just being faculty. So we had to assess how we were going to invest in human capital and be able to recruit in the future. Strategic focus remained on that, trying to recruit diverse and intellectual property that can come and service our students in the capacity that we all expect our students to strive from. So in a few minutes, you will see certain slides that I will be able to show you on exactly how we try to achieve that particular goal. Investment in the future, $1 million. This is for the next president's strategic initiatives. Don't like saying that very much. The next president's strategic initiatives. So we set that aside, and that's a good thing we're able to afford to do that. Infrastructure.
Let me just comment there. I felt very strongly being able to provide the president a pool of money that the budget can be budget first. I would do it in December, so this defense will not require the president to look at the budget line, move it over to those that he or she may identify. So I felt strongly about that. readily available, deal with this transition. Coming into a position, you know how it was, you came, certainly don't want it to be the same for the young person. It's kind of building for the future, that product is there, for whatever the president decides that he or she wants to do. See where we're late. Didn't have any.
It didn't have any budget. You want to make it easier for the next
I
person.
want to make it easy for the next person. That is exactly correct.
But you know what, that's not really common, in most institutions, especially.
Right.
So hats off to you. Faculty has done for this. It makes it an attractive position to walk into a situation.
Serious situation.
Hey, I'm gonna pray about that. I gotta make
Good. Good morning, everybody. This is Trustee Pickett.
Good morning.
Hey, I just wanted to add that I just wanted to thank Dr. Hugini for speaking with me. I was given the charge to, make sure we had, well, Dr. Jones and I had a conversation and looked at I guess we'll call it the investment in our human capital portion of the budget. And I want to thank Dr. Hugini for speaking with us on yesterday and explaining everything. And I wanted to say to my fellow trustees that we are not where we want to be just yet, but I wanted to make sure that we keep this top of mind, that as we do get more and more resources, that we invest in our people. And I don't know if they shared, I didn't hear that just yet, just shared how many people we have eligible for retirement, how many of our faculty is eligible for retirement, but that plays a big part in what we're doing for the people who are coming in to teach our students.
Thank you so very much. We're going to talk a bit more about how that ties into some recommendations for later when Dr. Batiste gets to that section.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next, investment in infrastructure, which is also very significantly important to any institution, but we are proposing, particularly with this budget, to continually invest. And you can see that we have two particular projects that we are very proud that is coming up based on dollars that we got from budgetary momentum. 6.6 million was set aside for the Welcome Center, which of course will open in fiscal year 22, as well as $449,000 for the council memorial. Finally, our investment in students, which is also a critical part of our institutional goal. We invest in furniture for student halls at $1 million, as well as band uniforms at $145 million.
Let me go back to the investment in infrastructure. There are more investments, but as Dr. Batiste indicated, what's significant about these is that the university is self-funding this, not taking out a loan or anything to build the Welcome Center or to deal with the council. It's actually being funded through internal allocation from the budget of the university.
In this next slide, this is how we are attempting to invest in our human capital based on discussions of what to really focus on. And of course, as mentioned earlier, with the idea that 26% of our body is eligible for retirement, while 56% of those happen to be faculty. So we start off with the staff. What we attempted to do here is we are trying to enact where we are bringing the current minimum percentile for any staff employee up to at least the 25th percent. This is, of course, to get them in line with being able to recruit proper staff into the university and to be competitive. It's not where we would like to be, but of course, this is a huge mechanism in being able to recruit and retain staff at Alabama A&M University. Our next slide shows our focus on the faculty part. And again, mentioned earlier, 56% of that total faculty body is eligible for retirement. So what we did in communication with academic affairs is we assessed the most critical area of recruitment and retention when it comes to faculty talent. And that happens to be at the associate professor level. That's where professor level. And this is where we have the most critical time retaining and recruiting top-notch staff to come to Alabama A&M. And we compared this with other institutions as well, and you'll see that on the next slide. But what we did was we decided that to take the current tier, the current minimum tier for 1 and 2 for faculty assessment, and bring them to the 25 percentile, just like we did with the staff. But in that critical area of the assistant professor, we brought their minimum to the 50th percentile. And this is to, of course, help us retain, recruit top-notch staff to come and service our students. So
Let me just add a point here. This recommendation actually grew out of concern expressed to that the provost with the deans, indicating that they're making salary offers, and the salary offers normally come at the assistant professor's level. We were losing faculty. They go through the process, and when the salary was offered, you take, for example, if you're in tier 1 and you offer young minted PhD $52,500, you've got another institution offering them much more, we couldn't keep them. And we were losing faculty who were already here as other institutions were buying them off. And so the intent, when you look at the fact that you've got over half of your faculty that could walk today, we're talking about building this institution. You've got to be more aggressive at recruiting and retaining that younger faculty member. So that's why, as Dr. Batista said, you will notice there's been a more significant focus on that assistant professor's level so that you can bring in and retain. This is still not where it needs to be. I'll be the first to tell you. If you go down to tier 4 and they say, well, that seems like a reasonable sum, but when you think about PhDs and areas like engineering, that's still going to be very, very difficult to attract and retain them. And you'll see there's a little footnote there to provide a little bit more leverage so that the provost to recommend with this, there be some adjustment so that we can be competitive. As people are getting closer to that point and deciding to move forward.
What budget has that increased for sign-on bonus, relocation incentives for moving? Has that budget increased? If so, what line item is that?
There are adequate dollars to do that in terms of sign-in bonuses. So we don't do sign-in bonuses. We do relocation. That has already been a part of it, but we don't do sign-in bonuses. The budget, the problem is really not so much in the dollars for recruiting the individual. The difficulty has been in the dollars we were able to offer to get the person to accept the position. Because there's a legal issue that you have involved in this as well. The legal issue is if you establish this, and Attorney Devereaux and Attorney Staker will tell you, if you establish this as your minimum, then when you bring the person in, that's what you have to use. If you begin to move away from that, you open yourself up to litigation. And so it was important that it not be attacked in a piecemeal fashion. Well, I really want this person, so I'm going to offer this salary. You have to have a structure that addresses anyone who comes to the table when you make that offer. So it's not so much the dollars for the recruitment as it was the dollars to offer the salary. Look at the university.
Only other comment I was just going to say is I think it's necessary to assist you in doing your national broad to try to recruit some of the brightest and best professors, creating or increasing efforts for reaching those individuals to get to us. I just think the first step is exactly what you're saying, is to increase salaries. But however, you might want to look at increasing the budget to reach a whole broader base of professors and potential employees. In that regards for the retention piece, so for those that are already on campus working maybe at the instructor level, looking to go to the next level. So is there a succession planning within departments or organizations for those that are already here, as opposed to, and you can understand, if I'm here 5 years and I'm an instructor and I want to go to the next level, but then there's a search for other professors, are we also, trying to retrain and prepare those individuals to rise up?
There are two things. Good question, Mr. Robinson. Let's go back to this minimum salary piece again and point to something that's taking place. And I want to look at the assistant professors again. So if I came into the university in 2021, I came in at 52,500. If I come in 21, 22, which is the upcoming year, I come in at 68,250. So you've got a differential between those who came in last year and those coming this year. But we address that because you don't want to create that kind of salary differential, because that's just what you said. You're going to have morale problem. So the other thing that is happening with this budget is that every person will be brought up to the minimum, the proposed minimum. So if you take that person who's at 52.5 and you apply 6% to them, and that 6% does not bring them to 68,250, this budget brings them to 68,250, so that everyone is on this scale. For every rank and every tier, those are the minimums, whether they're coming in for this year or whether they came in prior years. Because if you don't do that again, you create different salary levels depending upon when people come in. You have a minimum, and the minimum needs to be across the board for everyone. The other is that there were dollars available through our Title III, where a person at that master's level who wants something, he can't do so. So there are the tiers were designed by the Subcommittee study that was done, and the tiers are based on looking at different disciplines and the competitive salaries of those disciplines. Now, of course, there'll be those who take exception, but we didn't do this. But tier one would be areas like sociology, psychology, tier one. Tier three would include biology, even though some would argue that biology should be in tier 4, but that's not the decision that we made. Yes. But that's how the tiers were designed. It's based on the competitiveness of salaries within those disciplines as to whether it's tier 1. They combined 1 and 2 because there was really not that much of a difference between the two. So rather than having a tier, having 5 tiers, they just collapsed it back down.
So it may be time for us to look at that again, because as with the changing times, the tiers, especially with so much emphasis on STEM, we want to be a STEM university. We might want to look at where we place the various disciplines in the different tiers. So that's one of the things we want to put on the table.
I'm
That we
sure
look
that
at.
Dr. Jones will take it up. Yes.
This proposed salary adjustments we're attempting to go to, where will that rank us in comparison to our other agencies?
Good question, and I think the next slide will begin to address that issue.
Dr. Hugini, one comment before we move to the next slide. I just want to commend you and your administration for this. These are the individuals that create the quality of life for our student, create the caliber of student that we have that we put out into the workplace. So this is timely and it's very needed. And again, I just want to commend you for the good work around this.
I want to echo that. We did meet with Dr. Hugini regarding the salary structure and completing the promise that we made 3 years ago. And so that's in my report, but we really appreciate that. As we look at, this in the future, we're looking right now at a naked, I say a raw number, in terms of the salaries. We'd like to look at what the mean number is. What is the mean average in those areas, and what is the mean deviation? That will give us more information about the salary in for the faculty or in those particular ranks. So say, for instance, if you're at the professor level, we see 91, that looks good. If you just look at the raw number. But that number is probably representing a range of people who are professors that may not even be at 91 yet. They may be in the 80s, and then there may be some that are 100 and so. So the mean number and the mean deviation, how many people are deviating from that mean number, that will help us, that will give us more information to know where we stand.
Now, Dr. Jones,
And that would be,
that 91,775, that's the minimum. There'll be no professor.
that's the minimum.
No professor on the campus, if this budget is approved, no professor will make less than 83,400.
In tier 4.
If you're in tier 1 and 2, the minimum salary that you will get on campus as a professor is 83,400. If you're at
Okay,
tier,
so that's just the minimum number, not the average.
that's not the average. No,
Okay.
this is minimum.
Okay,
This is the
all right,
minimum.
that's better.
Yeah, these
I
are
don't
the
look at
minimum.
minimum.
Feel better, Dr. Jones?
Yeah, those are minimum.
No, I didn't.
President Ugini.
So it's from there up.
Yeah.
Oh, if you could, one more time, could you please are we going to be able to break down the classifications for tier 1 and 2, tier 3 and 4? What professor would qualify for tier, or what type of professors would qualify for tier 1 and 2, tier 3 and tier 4? Would tier 4 be the STEM related professors, or if there's any clarification, if you could?
Sure. What I will need to do is pull the Simmons study, and they have all of the disciplinarians. I think they're there. So I don't have that for you now, but we will get that information and have it for you before the end of the day tomorrow. We can actually go in and tell you exactly what disciplines are here. That's the 4 or 5.
Yeah. You might need
It's time. It's time to look at.
And just and on that basis, all of this is all the different tiers do meet a specific discipline. So like, let's say core tier or tier 1 and tier 2 would be your standard English teacher or history teacher. Tier 3 would be let's say someone in the College of Business and Public Affairs teaching political science, or maybe something around that nature. And then tier 4 would be, since we are a STEM school, tier 4 would kind of be in that STEM area where they maybe in engineering or something like that.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
you will give you specifically all of the disciplines in those tiers.
Okay.
Once we pull the study out. We do have a study, I just don't know them offhand.
Dr. Hugani, Trustee Williams,
Yes.
congratulations. You've done a legendary job. My question is you did a remarkable job in your recruiting efforts with some of the professors that you brought in. Is there some things we're missing that the Huntsville community and other areas that bring to the table that may help us recruit, that is on the table, off the table, or some things you think from your experience, because you've done a really good job, that we can make sure we take advantage of?
What's happening, obviously, in the whole community of academies, that in certain disciplines, the numbers of persons that are qualified to teach, those numbers are dwindling. Well, let me give you an example. Engineering. The market for engineering faculty is very, 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 very competitive. One of the advantages that you can bring to the table for a place like this is to talk about what occurs in this community and opportunities that they can have in working in industry, et cetera. And here's the reason why that area is so competitive. We have students walking out of the door with baccalaureate degrees making $70,000 and $80,000. If you look at this tier and you see that we are only offering an assistant professor with a doctorate $75,100, it's very, very difficult to encourage individuals to go on and get the doctorate. The only thing they're going to do with it, if you get the doctorate in engineering, it means that you want to teach in the academy. It's not for financial resources, because you can make that much and more without the doctorate. So the numbers of people with doctorates in those areas are continuing to dwindle. This is another example that you have a very difficult time, because people can make a lot more money being a CPA and not having to get the doctorate, which is required to teach by our accredited body. So Trustee Williams, the community itself is a good draw, but we are again dealing with a very competitive area, particularly as we are positioned as one of the third largest producing STEM universities in the HBC.
Well, Dr. Gainey, Trustee Gainey here. I just want to say, when you're looking at the structure and the salary of our faculty and the recruitment of our students, we cannot recognize the fact that you have definitely been a tremendous steward in engaging our community, especially in the business community, as well as the industry, the education, students, and the religious community. And I think when you're looking at all of this, what makes this a special place under your leadership is that it gives people comfort of retirement, one of the best places to retire. So I think looking at these numbers and what you have done in your tenure has definitely made this a very exciting place and a very great opportunity for the next person to step in. So I wanted to take this time to thank you for that. And as I look at these numbers, some people may think it's low, but I think it's an opportunity for those, because of your stewardship in our community, to make what our programs known nationally and worldwide. I just want to take this time to say thank you.
And I just want to add, I just want to thank on behalf of the faculty. This is a great discussion that I'm hearing today. We haven't had that many trustees to chime in on the need to do something about the salaries for faculty and staff. So we really appreciate it. And again, in my report, I'll convey the sentiments of the faculty at the university. Thank you so much.
Our next slide looks at the comparisons between other regional universities throughout the state. Now, as you can see, the top line shows Alabama A&M, their current structure and the proposed structure. If we just take a look at University of North Alabama, which is the third to last button towards the bottom, in our proposed structure, the assistant professor at University of North Alabama is at $66,924, while we're proposing to bring that particular faculty to $75,717. What that clearly means is that the University of North Alabama would have to readily increase by 13% to be competitive to us in our proposed structure. That's in essence helped us to recruit and retain faculty. And of course, looking at the professor proposed structure as well compared to University of North Alabama, that too would be a 9.8% increase they'd have to readily address in order to compete with us with the new proposed structures for faculty.
And the associated is, what do we have to be associated about?
Over 10%, yes.
So Dr. Jones, the short of this is that unless the institutions that are second to us, unless they increase at the professorial rank, if they give an increase greater than 9.8%, they'll catch us. If they don't go larger than 9.8%, we are the top with the regional salaries for professors. Assistant professors, unless they give 13%, our assistant professors are going to be best paid among the regional institutions in the state.
That's good. That's where we need to be, number one.
All right, okay. All right.
You good?
Dr. Jones, are you happy now?
You good?
No, she's not happy. She's okay.
Hey,
Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
we still gotta hear the report.
I'm giving my,
Want to keep that smile going on.
getting
over
it.
there.
I'm giving my report on
She
Friday.
might edit it
I'm
by
not gonna
then.
give today. After y'all vote.
Looking at the summary impact of the budget for fiscal year 22, you can see that our net increase in gross revenue at 6.6 million. Looking at the increase in state appropriations, the projected increase by tuition and fees, as well as increases in auxiliary services. And as you can see, even with the initiation of expenditures like human capital, we will remain in budget for fiscal year 22. Next, we look at the investment in residence halls. Throughout the tenure of the last few years, we have invested considerably in renovating and building new and additional resident halls for Alabama A&M. That has been a total of $4.3 million per year in renovations for those halls to offer students better capacity. Of course, there's examples on this slide to show you the different halls, the halls that remain projects that we accomplished during this period. And of course, they'll be elaborated a step further under the capital projects. This is just a reminder that in June of 2019, the Board of Trustees did approve what's called the Bulldog Bucks. And this is just to show that now that is going to come to fruition in spring of 22, once the Welcome Center has, it becomes online. And this allows students, both commuter as well as resident students, to have money to be able to spend within those facilities like Chick-fil-A. So with that being said, the administration recommends that the Board and Finance Committee approve the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 22 in the amount of $211,467,000. This budget also includes 6% for all employee increases based on their tiers and faculty and salary grades to staff to address market competitiveness.
Thank you, Dr. Batiste. Is there any further questions or discussions?
I have a
Trustee Hackett?
question, back to investment in resident hall. What is the plans for Grayson Hall?
There have been some discussion, but we don't have that on the list right now. You will see some other projects that we have later when we get to the Building and Grounds Committee. Right now, I do know there's been some discussion about ROTC, about something they could possibly do with that, getting some resources from the Department of Defense to make it kind of like a dormitory for ROTC. So there is some options available, but we haven't included those options.
Okay.
In this budget.
But that's the only one that's still there. Great Walker Wood is on its way out. So we know that. And we know the old gym annex is gone. The West annex is gone. So that's the only building that is still there that was here years ago. Because the old Grayson, other building, wood building, history I found out about, caught on fire, and that's how the present building was built. Thank you very much.
I would like to make one comment about the salaries. Our core goal is quality education, excellence in education. And I think we need to, I'm very glad to see the increases. I worry that they're not enough. We need to really be looking at this closely on an ongoing basis and be prepared to approve even greater increases. We need to stay ahead of that ball because that's where the action is.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, trustee Huntington. Our desire was really to go to that 50% require investment of $12.3 million. We did not have at this point, so we only had about half of that. And that's why we took the initial process to focus on where we think that we're. But long-term, we do need by the same token, it has been our philosophy that we do not provide and request increases for faculty and staff at the same time that we change tuition and fees. We separate the two. The years that we're going to do tuition and fee increase, we don't do salary increases. And so since we did not propose tuition and fee increase this one, we did not try to make up the rest of that 60 and something.
I'm not even sure we would ever be concerned about not making up that difference with tuition, because one of the things we want to be sure of is that we have an affordable education that's high quality. And that'll come back and that'll pay back many, many dividends to the university.
If I can, first of all, I'd like to make just a brief comment. Thank you to the investments in the residence hall. I think that was very needed. I know we take in full priority the quality of life of each student here on Alabama A&M's campus. And as a former, as a student here, living within the residence halls, I lived in Foster. That was my residence hall my freshman year. Furniture wise, we were barely making it. I can assure you of that. There were some days where we didn't know if a chair was gonna break or if it was gonna be able to last us the entire semester. So we are very grateful to the investments in new furniture for the residence halls. I think that will be very appreciated to the student body. But on a more serious note, how in the near future, I would, for me, hopefully see a more expansion of our residence halls. We still have the biggest problem that, we all see is that, there are still some students that don't have access to residence hall. While we do house majority of the campus, we still do leave a vast majority of working and middle class students that barely make ends meet out of that process, having to go find apartments in the Huntsville area or even go out into the Madison area. So I hope in the near future that we can see an approach to more residence halls, whether that be reopening some or renovating some, or maybe in the near future, maybe building some more. But that is just the only comment regarding that. But thank you for that investment in furniture. That is greatly appreciated.
Trustee, you feel there is a significant desire to have additional students who really love to have additional stuff?
Sir?
You feel there's a strong desire among students?
Yes. I'll expound on that. When I was simply just campaigning to be SGA president and having to be able to speak with the student body about the problems that they see within the university, one of the biggest things that they brought up to me, at least one of their top 3 priorities is more or less housing insecurity. When they are doing that process, it's kind of a winner take all system. If you lose, then you're stuck with having to find off-campus housing that I'm blessed to where if I wasn't SGA president and afforded the certain perks of that particular job and I didn't have my housing, I can go and find an off-campus apartment because my parents can go and afford that. But there are a vast majority of students that aren't, as blessed as I am to do that. So the biggest thing is that they always brought to me is that we want to see more housing availability on the campus of Alabama and the university because they feel as though the biggest thing is that they aren't being, not to say this is going to sound, I don't know, this is going to sound bad, but
Prioritize.
Yeah, they're not being prioritized.
Help them out, Bishop.
But like I said, we appreciate the furniture because I know Foster has been going through it for these past couple years, but we really do appreciate it.
And I thank you for bringing those comments to us. Obviously what we try to do is set priorities, and got millions of things that need to be done. Try to find a way that you address them in a very strategic manner. We understand that the furniture needed to be replaced, but there were some other things such as elevators and roofs, et cetera, that needed to be taken care of before we could get to furniture. Because you want to have a situation where your roof is leaking, but yet you've got new furniture in the construction. So we took care of the basics first, and after taking care of the basics, now we're moving to upgrade in terms of trying to make it aesthetically more pleasing with furniture and the like. So that's true. In terms of housing, I think you're correct in terms of the fact it's the kind of housing that students are really interested in. They don't get more of the traditional housing, which means that from a university perspective, probably will be building so that you provide them the kind of housing desirous of. But I'm certain that you have that discussion as well, and it will get done. It's so easy to
Look, I'm a different kind of president nowadays.
And you learn from a person that's not too far from you. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, well, in particular, I've had some very good predecessors that have taught me the ways of being SGA president. And mind you, there are several ways to where you can approach the presidency. And so I've had the extreme opportunity to work in talking with former President Jelks and former President Gray and former President Ingram, about all of the things that they had going on in their administration. They've been very forthcoming with information and just being guides and mentors to me as I kind of am tackling this new terrain that I'm in right now. Kind of like there was an asthma commercial. I know this is bad to talk about asthma like this, but they say in that commercial, you're a fish out of water, when you don't have an inhaler. But I guess I can't talk about it because I do have asthma. But you're a fish out of water, and so they have made sure that they put me back in the water so I can continue to keep on swimming.
Well, you're swimming quite well, Mr. Smith.
Yes.
And I
Trustee,
want to,
for being a positive voice and such a great advocate for the student body. Appreciate
And
your
I just
comments.
would
wanted
like
to add,
Add one comment to Trustee Smith's. The housing on campus is so important to create an opportunity for students to network with other students, many times from other parts of the country. And these are relationships that help you in business relationships and professional careers for the rest of your lifetime. So the more students we have on campus, it is just inherently going to create a more high quality educational opportunity.
Go ahead, Trustee Banks.
Trustee Pickett?
oh, I was just going to say that oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to add that, and he comes from great stock. His mom is actually a school board member in Montgomery, so he's had some good practice.
Yeah, you're right about that one, Trustee Pickett. I think I learned. My mother taught me best. You can never forget about her because she is the backbone of our family for sure. And she would probably, if I didn't say some of the things that I would say today, she would probably look at me kind of wrong and say, "You need to go back up there and make sure that you clarify everything that you said." And so
She would. And she's our soror.
Yeah. It's hard, but yes, Trustee Pickett is so right. My mother has been a very influential part of my life. She does serve on the school board, so she has taught me how to look at budgets and see what questions need to be asked. And so I've been prepared by my mother the best to assume this role. So I'm gonna stop talking now.
One quick thing before we move on, because where are we in the whole housing plan for additional? Is that in the plan at all, at any level?
It's obviously in the discussion phase, but it's not a part of, when I said the near term I'm defining as 21 timeframe. We want to be sure that we get everything done in terms of our maintenance on the buildings that we have now, and we'll see this later. Placement of elevators, placement of alarm systems, and et cetera. Before we build more, we want to be sure that all of those issues in the existing ones that we have to take care of those. And then we move to expansion. We still have significant work, for example, to do in those fields. We don't want to build more without the issue of not maintaining what you have. And so the budget right now is focused on, let's be sure we get all of it. Chip will talk about that. Let's deal with those immediate issues. Once we do that, then the next level will be to expand in terms of building. There are some other buildings. The buildings that you need for student housing, there are some other buildings. Put us on the line. I'm going to say that's what we're talking about. But teaching, there are a couple of buildings that still need to be constructed.
We can also say though, is it safe to say though, all the dorms that we demolished, that more than likely will go back with dorms, and that's something we'll say?
I don't think it'd be appropriate to be defined in that. Okay.
When we get to student affairs, we will definitely talk with about housing with the director and start pulling the data on those that did not make it on campus, get a mix of different little things to help drive that as well.
Well, thank you for the discussion and dialogue. Dr. Batiste, thank you for outlining the motion. As Dr. Batiste stated, the administration recommends that we approve the proposed operating budget. Hearing no more questions or discussions, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Watts.
Just for technical, it's motion to recommend approval, right? To the board.
Okay,
Recommend approval.
okay. The administration, well, we recommend to approve. Thank you, Trustee Watts. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Hackett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, motion to recommend to approve.
Dr. Batiste?
Next, we're going to cover the tuition and fee room and board assessment going into fiscal year 2022. As you can see, we are not requesting any change to the tuition and fee structure that is currently in place. The only changes that we are bringing to the table today are per contractual obligation, which is a 3% meal plan increase, as well as resident hall increase at 3%. So those are only contractual obligations. So with that being said, of course, the administration is recommending that Business and Finance Subcommittee approve the proposed tuition fee room structure.
Do I hear a motion for a recommend to approve?
Recommend to approve.
Thank you. A second to recommend to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next, we'll briefly look at the line of credit. Basically, since the inception of the line of credit in 2010, we have maintained that line of credit unused to this point. So this is just an overview to let you know that the $8 million that was assessed as a line of credit still remains in place and unused to this day. Now we'll go to initiatives from the Business and Finance Department.
Mr. Chinweizy? Very brief, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. My name is Marshall Chinweizy, and really just giving you an overview of where we are with the Board of Transit System or Department of Transportation. Our objective was just to really, at this point, is to operate a 100% emission transit system. Really, that means that probably we have no emissions in the buses, and also the fuel or the energy that goes in the buses. The objective is to make sure, because you have to charge the buses. However, the electricity is coming from the grid, whether it's coming from coal, whether it's coming from hydro, whether it's coming from any source that the energy utility companies are providing. So our goal is really to get out of that system, or to get out of that source of energy, to come to a clean energy. One of the things that we get funding is that we propose two things: that we want to have a clean environment. Also, which means areas that are surrounding Alabama A&M University should not be impacted with pollution. And that creates what we call environmental justice, and to make sure that we can raise healthy communities. So that's why we've been, probably one of the reasons that we've been funded, because that's the direction that we wanted to go. So at the moment, the goal was that we need to have at least 8 buses. ETS operates more than 8 buses, but on our routes, we operate 8 buses. We have 6 routes, and we are required to have 20% spare ratio, which means we need 2 extra buses. We operate 6 buses, and we need 8 buses. The other 2 are just for spare ratio. So that's why we are targeting 8. At the moment, we have 6 buses. 2 were delivered last year, and 4 were delivered probably last month, of which you will see later on. And we are now trying to actually put an order for 2 more buses to meet that 8 requirement. We are hoping that this can be done probably. We are holding off on those 2 buses. Technology is changing every day. So sometimes you just don't want to jump and order a bus. Most of these buses, we have to design them from scratch. So we're just waiting to see exactly where technology is going in terms of the batteries, the capacity of the batteries, so that they can give you that extended range of energy when you can operate the buses, maybe about 300 miles with a full charge. So we kind of hold off on that, given that we still have those 6 buses that we think come August, we'll be able to operate those 6 buses. The other items here that we need to do is the infrastructure that's related with these electric buses. If Dr. Gini can allow me, I think when he came first time, I don't know, I was assigned to give him a tour of the campus with a golf cart, and we went around. One thing I learned from him was that everything has to look good, aesthetic. It's a word that I never really had put in my mind. But when we were doing a tour, he just kept talking about that, wanting to make things look good. But I think one thing we're going to do with these grants is that on the other side of the campus, we're going to try to make that east side of the campus as good as it can be when you approach it from that point. Actually, if you go back now, the construction is going on for the bus charging station and bus wash, and we're going to put a bus service bay. So we're going to try to make sure that whoever comes from the back of the campus, close to Foster, you will actually see good-looking, aesthetics well, buildings, and everything is neat, instead of maybe having a junkyard of old vehicles, old buses. So I'm hoping that by the end of this year, those structures will be in place. We are targeting that this thing will cost us about $15 million. To date, we have secured about $11 million. So we're still waiting for $4 million. The $4 million, we've applied for that, wrote some grants. What we want to do is eventually to build a solar farm or solar arrays. Those solar arrays, we're looking at probably 1.522 megawatts generation of energy, so that we actually will be complete off the grid when we charge the buses, and also have energy to actually fuel or energy to supply to some of those buildings in that area with 1.5 megawatts. So that's what we're planning. What we'll do with that, we'll also have to buy barrels of energy batteries. It's an energy system. They come in tanks, they come in like big trailers. So when there is no sunlight during the daytime, what you do is that you store that energy in those battery systems, so that you can actually utilize the energy from those battery systems. So that will cost us about $2 million for that system. So that's really where we're going. And we're hoping that we will come August 2020, we'll operate the 6 buses on campus while the other construction is in progress. We're hoping that maybe by end of December, we will have most of the infrastructure in place. So that's my report.
Thank you. May I comment, we were doing the buildings and stuff, even the dorm, my concern was, I was looking at the solar potential and its storage, battery storage technology, where we need to utilize it. I applaud what you've done. We have not done enough on this campus in moving forward energy independence. So I applaud what you're doing. I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and the administration will support you in moving in this direction.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I did. Dr. Eugene really has supported. He just said, you look for the money. The university normally comes at 20%, but he just said, you just go and look for those grants and we'll see what we can do to come up. So the portion of the university right now stands at $3 million. You'll have to find $3 million so that we can meet our
You'll
target.
get it. You'll get it. I'm confident you
Thank
will.
you. Thank you.
That's a great news story, and we need to put that out there. I don't know where we rank among colleges and universities as far as the transit system using that solar power energy. If we could get that information and put that in some of our accomplishments and marketing, branding, that's very attractive. And as far as research, we may get Dr. Walker to look at how hemp could power some type of transportation. Right, Dr. Walker?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We'll do that. Actually, I was talking earlier on probably is that if we achieve 100% zero emissions, we'll be the only transit system or bus system in the whole United States to achieve that 100%. That's what I'm talking. Otherwise, right now, nobody has really achieved it. There's still technology challenges with it, but we're working with a company right now that's that's working with the energy storage systems. Of course, the company that we bought buses, for your information, they went on the, they actually now it's a publicly traded company as of yesterday. So if you want to buy stocks for Proterra, you can go and buy the stocks. Clayton was here one time, the stocks were 18 because they were bought with a transitional company. They were 18. I think yesterday they were trading at $99. So I actually asked the company if they could.
Why are we just now getting this?
Why are we just finding this out now?
If they can give A&M some shares, they have not responded to that email. But saying what you have said, last year I was invited to speak in Scotland at the Electric Vehicle Congress. Of course, we had to do virtual. One of the only problems that when they listed me when I was speaking virtual, they said University of Alabama A&M University. So I had to actually correct them to make sure that we are Alabama A&M University. And I've been also invited to speak in Berlin this year at the World Congress for Infrastructure for Electric Vehicles. So that gives a name for you.
Next initiative, purchasing.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jeff Robinson, Director of Purchasing. One of the things I've learned as a leader, and often I've heard Dr. Hugini say, was that an organization is only as effective as its people. So one of the things we did, we took the initiative to try to strengthen our procurement process by training the individuals here, faculty staff here at the university. So what we did was we held a purchasing refresher. What it was, we found that a lot of the administration, admin assistants were new, and then some of those who had been here typically kind of forgot some of the things that they had been taught. So what we did was we conducted a purchasing refresher, and we had a 10% participation rate, which was about 80 employees. And the reviews were great, and they've asked us to do it again. So what we're going to do is probably hold this event probably every quarter to introduce them to new processes. Just make sure that they are on top of everything, because we want to provide them with the knowledge and the tools that they need to ensure that we are compliant in our procurement process. Okay.
And just as a first slide, gave the first lady first tour of
Thank you for those initiatives. The only one I'm gonna take personal privilege at this time is just in the controller's office, just to introduce you to who will be serving as interim controller. Courtney Davis. Just want to make sure you have a face with the name. University contracts. Next thing that we're looking at here. And as you can see from this particular list, this is just an overview of the current university contracts. We have 2 that we are negotiating and pending at this time. And of course, that's Airmark Facilities and Staples Office Depot. Those are the only ones that we are kind of looking at this time.
When do you expect AAMU facilities contract? While you're in that process.
We are basically at the end of that. They are drafting right now based on the last communications that we had a meeting prior to Mr. Gibson's departure. And with that, I'm just waiting on the draft of all of those things that we asked them to include. And then I should have a final report on that.
This doesn't matter of information. The facilities contract is one of those contracts on state human law. So this competitive bid put on the facilities versus producing, not a sole source. So based on the competitive bid, they were the most responsible responding to that. Important talking about to know that the state process involved issues that kind of process that's called construction, those go out.
Is it possible to look at the aspect, the clause in regards to quality as far as services that's being provided, not only by this particular provider?
Yes.
I think it's more important since we're in the process of looking at Airmark. What is the recommended way to support Dr. Houdini, ensuring that is built in the contract, students prioritize as far as the quality of the service they receive?
Well, the 2 different elements, they the same, 2 different elements. They're under the same umbrella, but they are actually.
Would that be available to one of our?
Absolutely.
Because, again, these are public documents. Contracts are open. Public, they're competitive bids, so they are. Every aspect of that is open for scrutiny by the public.
And is there a protocol or possibility, since we're obviously in negotiations now for review prior to the agreement?
Now, that piece I can't answer. That's a legal question now, but
I think one of that, one of our, at least get sort of take a look, get a feel as to, from a perspective with a student on campus, what the sense are in relationship to our main product for students.
We not have that also provided to all the trustees, so we can take a look at that instead of just giving it to one specifically, because I would be interested in seeing that as well.
I just don't know about the last piece. I don't know.
Do we ask our attorney?
Yeah, isn't Attorney Stakely on? Is Rod Stakely on?
No, it's because it is.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I couldn't get all unmuted here.
The question, Attorney Stakely, is that we are now negotiating final details of the facilities contract with Aramon. And the question is whether or not doing this negotiation process, is it possible to share details of that before the contract has been signed?
Share details with other members of the board who will be ultimately voting whether to approve or disapprove?
No, that they will not be voting to approve or disapprove the contract, because contract comes under state competitive law. Question is whether or not we can share details during the negotiation. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. When they're not, so it's a bid process?
It is a bid process, and it has gone through the bid process, and the Ironmark Facilities has been designated, selected as the most responsible to that bid, has been most responsive. But now the final contract has not been signed. They're going through certain details of working out aspects of the final aspects and details of that contract. So I don't.
Yeah.
In this negotiating phase, can you share the document?
I understand the question. Well, there is a problem with the sharing of information that's not public knowledge, and it's not the issue, I guess, is the extent to which if the trustees are not themselves involved in the process, and they're not part of the selection committee at this point, because there's a statutory process pursuant to which the decisions are being made. There is a potential problem with sharing that information. And what I'd like to do is to, rather than just give you a hip shoot answer, I'd like to consider that further and determine, and I will respond very quickly as to whether and if at all, what kind of information could be shared. The problem I have initially is that if the board members are not to be decision makers, and it's being done pursuant to what is otherwise a confidential statutory process, whether the disclosure of that information could violate the procedure. And I'll provide you a very quick answer to that question.
Hey, Rod, just a thought, and something you can look into as well when you're doing your research. And I totally hear and respect those thoughts and requests. I'm wondering if this is standard practice for other universities. My only concern is not to impede the faculty and the administration in doing the job that they've done so well. Certainly, having the information, I don't also ever want it to be perceived that we're injecting ourselves in position of a conflict of interest with information that we now have. That would be my only concern.
Well, I understand you, and I think if you've listened to me over time, I have always favored and strongly in support of sharing information
and or members of the board in harm's way by doing something that could create legal or ethical issue in that regard. So let him investigate it, whatever he comes back with. If the contract was signed already, no question, because at that point it becomes a public document.
Dr. Keating, I agree with you 1,001%, because that helps us out to make sure we all on the same page. And in that way, anything comes up, we know we did it the correct way.
Question, on the various contracts here, so there are various individuals that manage this contract. And furthermore, like for different schools or departments, do they have the authority or the right to engage in contracts under or above, under a certain threshold?
Trustee Robinson, you may remember many years ago when I did government, we had a discussion about signing limits. And you guys, everybody was asked what the signing limits were. And signing limits were a dollar amount. And we never established the signing limit at this point. So the university has the authority to sign contracts at any dollar amount.
So each department head, or does it go to the president?
President signed off.
All contracts?
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as negotiations, are you a part of the negotiations? So there's like a source evaluation board or something like that?
There's a separate, based on state law. Committee review those contracts. Sure that evaluate based on that, they make a recommendation. So all that's done, ultimately then by I sign the process. I never gave it to work. That's something, you know, obviously.
I just think it's wise, and like Trustee Ball said, some of the comments as we move forward with those contracts that are coming up, that we make it known publicly, privately, however we need to do that. So when the evaluation board goes, they're getting this feedback saying, okay, well, the students saying this, or the stakeholders are saying this on our behalf and the students' behalf. So I think that's a particular piece of that.
And also, while we're talking about contracts, merchandise, didn't see anything listed on here in regards to Alabama A&M apparel and making it available, more available throughout the state. Is there a contract or is there?
We've increased our payments over the years. What we are in the process of setting up a web page on a landing page on our website, whereby people will know where to go to get licensed, who our licensed vendors are, because we do have a listing of those. And then also a place for people to report infringement on our because there are people that sell things on Etsy, post things on Facebook, and they're not registered vendors.
Share with the board as far as, is there anybody from the first engage retail, large retail opportunities?
We use CLC. They go out, they actually were able to get our items in Dick's Sporting Goods this year. So what they do is they look at the market trend, and based on where they see items being bought out or a request for an item, they will try to work with that particular vendor. At one point in time, we were selling items in Cracker Barrel, and they were all over the state. But a lot of times, if the items are not moving and they have to put them on clearance, then they don't go back and request to put items in those places. So that would probably be the thing. We can speak with our representative at CLC if there's some particular areas that you are thinking about, that we can ask him to investigate those areas and see which retailers we can place items in. But we have an extensive list that I can email to the board, because I just sent it to Ms. Stubbs this week, of vendors and of people that are licensed to produce items with our logos.
And I'm just wondering what the frequency is as far as their review of, placing our merchandise items that may not work at this particular location during this period. However,
I would have to ask him. I'm not sure
Okay.
what his frequency is, but whenever we ask him to go out and research, putting things places, he does work forward and try to take care of that.
But there's just a great interest. That's why we can talk about this offline. I'd like to meet, but definitely in the southern part of the state, there's a high interest for.
As long as we know and we can provide that information to him, he's willing to go out and do that research because that's what we pay him to do.
Thank you.
Trustee Barr, I think because we are the champions, you was floating around states possibly trying to cash in on the rings.
We need to do that. We definitely need to have that. Absolutely.
Double.
Thank you. Next is capital projects. You've been provided with a list of capital projects, but I will defer those details to the Building and Ground Subcommittee. With that being said, we're going to go to the facilities update from Airmark.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share what we've been doing for the last quarter with you today.
Point it this way.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Technical problems with me. No, that's wrong. I know, I sent it to Ms. Bishop. So for the executive overview for Airmark facilities, we are striving to collaborate with students and faculty to create a positive living and working environment. We're utilizing Airmark's resources and programs to do so and to provide a proactive facility maintenance program. We've also improved our PM and workflow process. We've have proactive measures in place to identify trends, and we shared resources to capture deficiencies and identify potential opportunities. Our impact solutions, we noticed that during our work orders that they were not being completed in the manner to which we wanted them to be. So we retained some hard skilled tradesmen in HVAC technology who has experience with boilers, refrigerations, gas certifications, and they have mechanical innovation expert experience. They're scheduled certified trainings for all of our maintenance personnel, and we are reassigning them to zones for accountability and to ensure that everybody is being predictive and proactive in their areas. We saw that in doing so, it reduced our work order response time drastically. We also implemented our Go Spot Check program. That's the program that we use to inspect the buildings for cleanliness. It is a mobile program that they use the cell phone for, and the picture has to be taken of the area where it has a deficiency or if it's cleaned properly. If it has a deficiency, the employee is brought back to the area to reclaim the area, and then training is done with that employee on that area and documented. We score these according to housekeepers, and we put incentives in place for housekeeper of the month based on these scores, also supervisor of the month based on those scores. We also saw that everybody was using QR codes during the pandemic. So what we did was we created our own QR code, and we're going to put those in restrooms on stickers. We have office cards that we're going to place in offices. We also have posters made that we're going to put in the restrooms where students and faculty and any visitors to the campus, if something is wrong, can report it in real time by using a QR code. Okay. Also, some of our service engagement opportunity involved internships, which we partner with Dr. Clayton. Airmark has dedicated recruiters and people in the field to go out and recruit vendors that would help to make that process, to streamline that process so we can be more engaged with the students and find opportunities of internships with our partners that we partner with, like CNN, BET, and some of the others. We also created a Facebook page so we can have more social engagement. It will allow the students an area where they can communicate with us, and we have somebody monitoring it so we can respond in real time. And it also makes it transparent to what Airmark is doing on a daily basis on the campus. We also reached out to the community because we were not community involved. And we went down to Martin Luther King School, the elementary school down the street, and we showed appreciation to the teachers. We also went to the Veterans Home on Memorial Day and showed appreciation to them. We bought lunch and we put the signage out, and we're going to partner with them throughout the year. Yes, sir.
You mentioned there's a Facebook page for the students to communicate with you, and that's open to the public as well.
It is.
So if I'm a disgruntled student, for whatever reason, is that the platform where I voice my complaint or my issues?
No, sir, it isn't. It's actually a forum where we will be working with the SGA president and the student activity advisors to get student involvement on how we can improve the campus. The forum to be disgruntled is through your work order process.
So do you not have a more internal to the campus and just for our students to communicate instead of that public platform?
Not at this time, but once we start working with Dr. Holloman and the SGA president, we're gonna see what we need to do to implement to make that more of an area where we can be more communicative with the student body.
I strongly recommend that because Facebook and those public forums, that's not a good look for the university. I think we keep family business inside. So the number one priority should be, or consider, is to have some type of intranet as opposed to the internet piece, or some type of on-campus through whatever platform we have for the students to communicate with you guys, not on the Facebook, I would suggest.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So Dr. Clark, can you guys collaborate and come up with something? For Mr. President?
You don't want me to cover it.
So, and my point, you can get all kind of malicious type of things. You can get information from other schools or just wackos out there just to defame the university, defame Airmark, and I don't think you're ready for that smoke. Not at
No,
all.
I don't want it.
And we can't afford it because we're trying to get into a positive public image.
Right.
And so you may have one or two students whose bed may be broken or may have trash somewhere, and that's just not the place to communicate that.
Okay.
And I think the most proper, and we'll work on this more, but I think probably the most proper way of doing that type of communication would probably be the use of internal surveys, would probably be the best viable option. So that'll keep it within our university and not into the general public. So they won't have that, like you say, blasting us on social media or something like that. So we'll work on that
And
further.
at one time we had where the students could generate a trouble ticket or a complaint or whatever. I don't know what happened to that. So it's like you had a mechanism, but now it's like we're going to something else.
We still have that, where the students can create a trouble ticket or call us directly and let us know what's going on. We still have that. And we have follow-up now where somebody's calling back to find out if that situation was resolved to your satisfaction.
I have a question. Are you still doing incentives for the students in filling out their surveys?
That's what we're gonna work with them for, to try to gauge what the best incentive that the students are looking for. What can we do better in that area to make sure that students are actively participating and communicating with us?
And one of the things I would suggest is maybe Austin sending out a survey on behalf of the SGA president and with an incentive to those students filling out the survey so we can capture the best possible results of what our students are talking about. Because I know we've talked about it in the past, how the percentages of those who are doing surveys in relations to the number of students we have on campus, it's not an accurate picture of what our students are feeling. And so maybe the two of you, since Austin, you're very aware of what the students what they're looking for to fill out these surveys. And maybe it's something also working with Dr. Ugini. So a lot of times something with the letterhead stating with a recognizable name with an incentive may increase the turnout in your survey participation.
Okay.
And I think another thing with, in terms of those type of incentives, I think maybe when we talk, probably more in depth, would probably be, I don't know, maybe possible giveaways of some kind. I don't know if that would be, I don't know the feasibility as of right now, but I mean, that is an idea that we can do to increase. If the problem is it's not the actual number of the student body responding, I think probably any type of incentive that deals with giveaways, whether that be gift card or maybe maybe a free, I don't know, maybe a free item at the bookstore. Just I don't know if that's actually possible to do, but anything like that, you know, that would probably be go a long way in making sure that we get the accurate count.
Also, I think, does Earmark, are they the only ones that see the results from the survey or complaints? Or does Mr. Ship have, do you have a team that looks at what they're looking at as well? Okay. So again, so what Earmark receives, you see the same thing? Or are you relying on what they tell you or give you?
Question.
Are there any students that serve on that with you on survey results or looking at that? Would that be a consideration?
Yes, Earmark's part of it.
SJ President, you might want to.
And
Yeah.
Trustee Robinson, to your point, I was gonna ask, how many students are employees of Airmark? Whether it be in the dining room and or facility service, how many students would
I'm
you
not
say?
sure how many Ms. Wilson has, but I have 3.
The reason why I'm asking is, do we need to look at when we employ students, and all we're trying to do is get feedback from students themselves, but who's better to obtain the information than students? You know, our president can go out there right now, and talk to 100 students who will tell him, they're not gonna stop and fill out a survey, but they'll tell him what they think. And, you know, he can easily, as they go by, fill it out and complete that. So if we have students on staff, why not by word of mouth, by employing those students, get them to go out and talk amongst themselves, because they're gonna do that. And in that way, we'll obtain the data that we're looking for.
We actually do something to that effect. We have LaShondra Tolliver. She's an administrative assistant in our department. She's also a graduate student here. And she will be working closely with the SGA president and Dr. Hollywood to try to gauge that information for us and give us some ideas on how to improve in that area.
There's one person, so I'm just saying, if you have a team that can reach,
That's my point.
a team that can reach more people, then we'll be able to have the data that we're looking for, so therefore we can enhance. or continue to
Again,
support what we're doing.
Trustee Ball, Trustee Robinson, you guys are on the forefront of where we're trying to get to. We had looked at putting together some different things to get more and more student involvement and include students in the decision-making process, as well as telling us, you know, where we may be lacking. Then the pandemic hit. Now we're back to bringing students back to where we can start to re-engage again. And we're looking at making that involved committee to where now we have SGA president that we can work with as well, bringing those students so that we can have those conversations. So we're moving toward that, and I apologize for the Facebook. I thought it was a good idea because most students tend to go to Facebook and stuff, and we were getting some feedback, some positive feedback from that. And another way to try to engage students in a virtual community right now. But we will get that removed, and we will continue to try to create those large groups.
I will add to that, you know, in this new realm of communication, social media is one of the biggest platforms that we as a younger generation have to go out and reach each other. I think the Facebook idea is a very noble idea. It's probably, I do see the backlash in it, that it would promote a kind of arena of to put this in a nicer term, an arena of vitriol towards the university. But I think in retrospect, if there is a way that we can keep a Facebook page, but maybe more or less keep the comments turned off so that there won't be any type of, it'll only, with the purpose of a Facebook page is to only show, this is what we're doing. Not to create, not to outlay all the problems that I see going on through here. So maybe we keep the comments turned off. You maybe are able to put a link within your Facebook page so where it'll directly relate students to maybe some type of survey or troubles or ticket link so where they can, actually detail that, detail what's going on. I think the biggest thing, that we can do going forward, the main priorities that my administration is trying to seek is to expand, basically engage students on the decision-making processes in the university. And so one of the ways that we are trying to do that is we are trying to get at least a student board, just a simple committee of students to help with each of the, try and help with each of the departments or as many of the departments as we can. And I think, the ones that are more directly impactful to students are the ones that we're trying to reach. And that is Aramark, and that is some different other areas that I don't want to talk too much, but we can definitely talk about that going forward.
Well, since we're in a digital age, I don't know how much of this that you can truly control unless Mr. Gibson can tell us that since we have our own survey. I think it will keep a lot of people on his toes. When you're looking at the form of communication now, especially within our youth and the younger generation that's coming up, that is a critical area for communication, and also it's a critical area to affect change, which we have all seen during this whole COVID social unrest system. So I'm not sure how you control that, Dr. Shep. Anything that's that any kid that has which most of them do, an IG account, Twitter account, their own Facebook, they can still do their own tweet, and the information still gets out there. So I think to have a safe platform and a way for the community to be safe, and I don't know if that's something Gibson can talk about, but it'll keep us on our toes with the remarks on making sure that we stay on our toes and equipped to answer the need quicker that students might arise or that might affect them.
And one comment I'll say is, as the administrator, you can hide and delete comments. So if there's something, obviously, like you're saying, it gives us the direct feedback, right? Sometimes it might be ugly. We hope not, but you can remove that. So it buffers it a little bit just for that PR and that image. But I do agree that it is the platform in which our student body is going to communicate with us.
Yeah, because the standard student per day will not check their emails in regards to an update regarding Aramark. That's a sad truth that we all have to face. Even in our own student government association, we don't get every student to interact with us through email. So that's why we do take to platforms like Instagram. We do have platforms such as Facebook to where we can communicate with them with. So, the new age of communication is to reach us as younger people is to always go to social media, because we aren't, the one thing that we'll check for an email is we'll check Instagram, we'll check Facebook, we'll check Twitter, we'll even check Snapchat if you want to create a Snapchat.
But going forward, we're getting way behind. Would it be okay if our committee chair, Harper, get with Mr. Shipp and the two of you to try to come up with a policy that we feel is appropriate? We're getting bogged down here. We got to move on.
Yes,
Yes,
We
sir.
appreciate the wonderful comments, though.
Yes, sir. We would love that. The other ones is just pictures where we went over to Morrison Fine Arts and they had some dressing rooms that had not been utilized in years. And we took those dressing rooms and we remodeled them to make them nicer for the students when they're doing their theater performances. And that's the dressing room. And that's what it looked like prior to. And that's just some more pictures of the dressing room. That's the bathroom before and after.
That's a dress room, not a dorm room, right?
That's a dressing room.
Okay.
That was a shower that we took and made into a hanging room. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I look forward to working with you on the face.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that is all from Business and Finance.
Thank you, Dr. Batiste. Unless there's any additional discussion, I think, Mr. Pro Tem, that concludes our report.
Thank you, Trustee Hopper. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break. We are gotten behind schedule. We'll make it up. I see Student Affairs, Provost is here, so he's gonna accelerate his scene, although is he next on the agenda?
No, we still.
Building and grounds.
Building and grounds and
grounds.
academic affairs.
Should we take a quick break, Mr. President?
Yes, we should.
Okay, 5 minutes. Hand cleaning stuff.
I see how we do it. I hate that what it used to be.